Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Dominic, and I am the host of the Android Factory. And today's episode is going to be slightly different from what we've been doing. So, previously, we've been building out this application here a little bit, and most recently, doing this little bottom navigation and connecting it to our Jetpack navigation library setup. But today is actually going to be a little bit of a reflection on what we've built so far from my own personal experiences. So earlier in the day, I had loaded this app onto my personal device and went around the apartment figuring out what I needed from Trader Joe's and, kind of used the app as I guess I've intended to. Because at the end of the day, this is supposed to solve a problem, a real world problem, and this was the first test of me actually using the application outside of, um, the context of building it. So I think it's really important to kind of reflect as you go on, and then eventually as you build a product or continue to build out a product, add more features to something, etc. It's always good to know what your users are dealing with and kind of understand your product. So, just outside of the context of this YouTube channel. So it's definitely a good idea to understand exactly what people are going through when they're using your application, pain points, etc. And today was a little bit of exposure for me in that regard. So there are definitely a few things that I thought were a little annoying or that we could definitely clean up. For instance, one of them is once this list is long enough, when you scroll, the bottom of the list, the last element is like the last pixel before this line, and it makes it quite difficult to see where the actual list is ending. So, a real quick win there. I actually thought that obviously we need to clean this up as well, like this bottom bar should just move. I don't even know what would happen. Wow, okay. This bottom bar should just not be there when we're on this screen. But I noticed something that I guess I just overlooked, but if we just started typing, let's say bread, it's not capitalized here, and I'm going to assume the same thing here. Yeah. We can very easily change that as well so that the beginning word or the beginning letter is capitalized in these text fields. And then when we do click save, for some reason the keyboard kind of goes down, and I thought we had fixed that, so we might need to revisit the keyboard issue here, but it did make it a little annoying to, find an item that we needed, hit save, and then the keyboard closes. I got to tap again to open it, blah, blah, blah. So it was a little bit cumbersome, but really not the end of the world. And it did have me thinking, is there a way to maybe do some kind of a bulk add? Maybe if I guess it's difficult because of the description, but if you were to say like bananas, comma, apples, and then cereal, maybe we would be able to make 3 items separated by commas, and then we could do that. So, maybe we could do something along those lines, and then the description would just apply for all of them or something along those lines. But anyway, an idea of bulk add was something that was interesting to me. Um, let's see, I jotted down a few other notes here. Obviously this profile page is pretty barren, so we kind of should build that out and kind of, I don't know, just offer something to the user on this page. Outside of that, I think I started down the road of category, which is something that I wanted to implement soon anyway. But at the moment, and it kind of made sense, but like the list was all just what I needed for that shopping trip that I went on. But it's very possible that, for instance, we didn't get everything that was on the list because we either thought we didn't need it or maybe we were going to get it somewhere else. So now I find when I open the app that there are just 2 elements here in the list I'm looking at on my real device, sorry, that are left over essentially. So I don't really know, what they were associated with. I mean, it says polenta and soup, so, I guess you could assume grocery shopping. But maybe we could create, particular categories that then when we're creating an entity here, we can assign it a category, maybe it's Trader Joe's or your local grocery store or Home Depot or Amazon or I don't know, some other store that you would end up going to or something along those lines, so that you can just maybe filter, which was another option that kind of ran through my mind, to say, okay, you know, maybe it makes sense to be able to filter or sort these differently for whatever reason. So we can look into that as well. And then also something I noticed, the drag and drop. You know, we kind of added things to the list that were not, they were in the order that we either discovered them or thought of them or saw that they were missing in our apartment, but they didn't necessarily match up with the layout of the store. And I think it's really impossible to figure out the layout of the store, you know, and incorporate that in like the sorting part of it. But what would be interesting is if we could offer a drag and drop, so that if the bread was the first thing you would run into, let's say before avocados in the store, you know, you could long press on bread and kind of drag it up to here and let it go, and it would reorder itself above the avocados. So then you could kind of view your list, the order that you would see those items in the store, if that makes sense, so that you didn't have to constantly like scroll through and find the element in the list and then be like, yep, we got it, and then we're good. So just a little, you know, quality of life thing, but then I kind of thought about it more, and I think it'll actually at the moment be a little bit difficult to move it. If you wanted to move it like all the way to the top, we would have to know, you know, like this element would need to know like what category or what grouping it's in at the moment, and then as it moves into the medium category or section here, that the element would kind of update, and then when it went to high, it would also update again. So might get a little tricky there. I'm sure we could figure it out, but regardless, drag and drop does kind of seem like a pretty good idea. And let's see, I think that was about it. Yeah, I mean, we don't have an icon for the app, you know, so that was like a little, like, what am I clicking on kind of thing, but real small element there, pretty easy to kind of change that up. And then otherwise, the dark mode, you know, I have my phone in dark mode, so when I opened the app, I saw everything in dark mode. It doesn't look as good as I want it to, so maybe I'll try to tweak that in the you know, behind the scenes and whatnot. But there are a few things here that we can kind of tweak, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. But I'd love to hear maybe in the comments if you guys have actually either used this application or have any feedback on it so far. I'd love to get your thoughts and see, you know, like a little, take a step back and kind of reflect a little bit so that we can move forward together. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a look at the home fragment and go to the binding, and then in our recycler view we can put a padding bottom of, let's do 3060p. So once we rerun that, the app looks the same and everything, but then as you scroll and get all the way to the bottom, you can actually see that there is this little bit of a gap here, and maybe we'll make it a little bit bigger. Let's go 54, just so you can kind of, I don't know, either see it a little easier, yeah, something like that. Doesn't look terrible. And then the floating action button, I actually didn't mind to kind of sit over these elements. I thought it provided a little bit of depth and kind of made sense to always have that action permanent, but if we need to fix it, we can. And then the other quick one that I wanted to fix really quickly was the add item. These text input fields, we can set a variable or an attribute called input type, and if we go to text cap, yeah, I guess we'll just do sentences. You can do word, and then that would make every single word that you end up typing default to like the first letter of every word having a capital letter, but then that might look weird with like toilet paper that both the T and the P are capitalized. So instead here, now you can see this little shift icon is already kind of selected for us. So then if we were to just write bread this time, it makes sense. And then, you know, for toast as the, you know, it kind of just looks like how you would expect it as far as capitalizations go and stuff like that. So that's all good there. So, yeah, I think, some of this other stuff here, like maybe this bulk add or sorting and filtering. Sorting and filtering, we'd actually kind of have to change the way that this screen works at the moment, the logic behind it in the epoxy controller. But we very easily can do that, and we probably should if we want to end up supporting different ways to sort or filter this data. But otherwise, I think we can kind of proceed with where I want it to go and adding in some categories so that we can see, there might be two medium items, but maybe one is, 3/4 inch nails and the other one are bananas, right? So it's kind of like, this looks a little weird here because they don't really go together, but if we had some kind of indicator or notification that said, this is under grocery, which you could assume, and this might be from Home Depot, which you could assume, in this case, maybe it's obvious, but maybe there's another example where you could, see two different things close to one another that might be a little ambiguous, or you wouldn't really have the full understanding of exactly where you intended to buy that item. So having a category attached to all these items, I think, would be a relevant attribute or thing to add. And if we just quickly take a look at our item entity object, we do actually have a category ID set up here already, which if you remember back from the beginning episodes, we added that in with the intention of this basically being or acting like a foreign key to another table that has the matching category associated with it. So there's going to be a little bit of database manipulation and work that we're going to have to do to accomplish that, but I think that it's very doable, and it's a pretty important task to understand how to build a relational database within the context of Room and Android. So, so for now, there are my thoughts. We've kind of cleaned up a few of them that would definitely bug me way more than they should, but we can kind of cross those off on the list, and then as we progress through the next episodes, maybe we'll tackle some more things. Maybe we'll take some suggestions from any feedback you guys give about what you've seen so far or your experiences with it. And otherwise, I guess some positives that I ended up seeing was that I actually enjoyed the action of using the application. I thought that it actually solved the problem pretty well. Being able to add things to the list was a pretty seamless experience. I did find that I was actually leaving priority low. I wasn't changing it because I was kind of intending to get those items that day. So maybe that has something to do with the way we shape this kind of stuff or display things. But I did really enjoy the swipe to delete. I did really enjoy that, the list basically shrinks as you go instead of a traditional, grocery list that you end up writing down. You kind of cross things off. The list doesn't get any smaller. It actually, if anything, gets busier because you have lines going through things you've already gotten. But this actually kind of shrinks, and I thought that was pretty nice. And I thought it was just, running a little cleaner, a little smoother on a real device. So that was a positive. So I'm going to leave it there, and in the next episode, I think we're going to go ahead and build out a little bit more of this profile here. Might turn into more of a preferences screen that's kind of, a little bit of customization that you can apply to the application and the way things work or the way certain things look or feel. So again, I'd love to hear your feedback. Please subscribe for more, and I'll catch you in the next one.